Yeah, I saw a few games here and there. So it's kind of interesting how Vici is disappointed Tyloo in two ways. By firstly losing to has disappointed Mitch in two ways. Firstly, by losing to Tyloo like that, and then of course also fucking his favorite Thai teams up the asshole. They got completely fucking reamed. Thai CS Omega fucking lol. Jesus Christ, they were so bad.
Alrighty, here we are for Geographically Challenged episode 6, and this is a fun episode. This is an exciting episode because we've got a lot to talk about, having just seen Road to Rio pan out, and obviously we have to give our opinions on that. Now, before we get too far into that discussion, initially, when we actually sort of started theory crafting this concept of this Asia podcast, we wanted to do it where essentially we got drunk and just talk shit about Asian Counter-Strike, and that's never really actually ended up happening. But today, at least Bleh and I have kind of jumped on board with that. So we're going to first go ahead and say, what I'll ask you first, Bleh, because I think you've got a bit of a better one than Pilsky does. But what are you drinking today?
I'm drinking a single barrel nice Jack Daniels. It's been about 45 days, close to 50 days of not having a single sip of alcohol, so I think I deserve this.
I think so as well.
And here's Bntet as well.
All right, cheers.
There we go.
I have a Macallan 12 for anyone that was interested. And Pilsky is what are you up to? What have you got for us today, Pilsky?
I just have a good old-fashioned cup of English breakfast tea with a bit of lemon and sugar. A classic.
A classic, especially after casting for like 5 days in a row. It's probably one of the better.
I like how he's dying after casting 5 days of Asian Counter-Strike. It's like his body and his mind is kind of like recuperating from the madness that we witnessed.
I am feeling very burnt out, and I have no opportunity to really slow down because, as often happens in life, when you dedicate, 5 days of 10 hours plus to Counter-Strike, you fall behind on everything.
Yep, pretty much. That's what I feel like right now. But whatever, we're going to dedicate another day to some Counter-Strike as we spend the better part of a couple of hours now talking about Road to Rio. Now, the way that we're going to do this is we're going to start by talking about the good, and there was some good, and then we're going to talk about the bad, and there was definitely some bad, and we're also going to talk about the ugly, and there was also a lot of ugly. So I think we'll just go region by region to start things off here. So let's just start off with ANZ, right? And I think, it's fair to say the good was there for Renegades. Pilsky, we got to see them win Road to Rio. They pretty much did what we expected them to do. Dexter was the top-rated player individually. Sicko and Inns were kind of up there. So it seems like everything's sort of working as intended for Renegades.
Yeah, I don't think they should have won this competition. Obviously, just the way that grand final happened, they just pulled off another one of those insane comebacks that you don't really expect from them, or that you do expect from them, but at the same time, you don't really expect from them. It's pretty ridiculous stuff. They were behind, I think, one whole map where they got 16-6 and then 12-3 at the half, and they still managed to turn around a massive comeback and reverse sweep into a 2-1. So it's just unbelievable at this point how many times Greyhound Gaming or Renegades, whatever you want to call them, could turn around such ridiculous deficits against every opponent in their region.
Indeed.
And even some outside, remember that Liquid game as well.
Yeah, Bleh, you were obviously watching this one. I think I saw you tweeting a little bit while we were casting that game. So what was your take on this match?
Renegades are pretty good they played before, right? It was a close matchup as well, I do believe, in the group stage, in the round robin group stage. And I think, Order with 12-3 up, that's when I tweeted out, I'm like, my lord, look at Order actually making it happen. I tune in like 20 minutes later and it's overtime. And I'm like, oh shit, what have I done? I feel it's both Renegades / Greyhound being Renegades / Greyhound, like you mentioned. They love the comebacks. They show that, again, right, that experience comes into play where they have played against better opposition with higher stakes, and they've managed to hold their own. And I think that really came into play here, being calm, composed, taking one round at a time, all of that good stuff. For Order, they kind of choked. Let's be real here. 12-3 lead, you have it in the bag. And for me, what surprised me was the fact that for Order, if you look at the players they have, you have Rike, you have Estilo. even Alistair for that matter. I mean, they've been around for a while, and yeah, you have Valiance and Jira, comparatively the newcomers. I don't know what went wrong there. You had the experience, the mix of experience and the youth. Great showing though. I still believe like they are really, really, really good, and they are definitely the top two team, the second best team in Australia right now. I don't know what went wrong. They have the experience, they have the right talent, they had the lead, but I felt like the pressure got to them. That one chance to finally, knock down Renegades a notch, and they kind of shit the bed.
Yeah, and I think we should talk about Order as well. I sort of intended to spend a bit of extra time here talking about Renegades, but in reality, like, I don't think there's that much interesting to say, honestly. It's kind of just the expected result, and like, while they're in this good category, I think the interesting content is going to come from the quote-unquote bad and ugly category. So we may as well start, like, moving through these good ones a little bit quicker. Order, like, yeah, again, Pilsky, exactly as what Bleh says. They did perform well to get to where they did, and the fact that they were able to get up 12-3 over Renegades, in my mind, is still good enough to kind of put them in this good category, because it's kind of showed that teams domestically within the ANZ region are still able to challenge Renegades, and, there is still some fight left. It's not just going to be that sort of whitewash that we kind of, maybe expected to see, maybe hoped not to see. So I think actually, by and large, this was not a bad outing from Order. Particularly Ricky, I thought, was really, really impressive here for Order in Road to Rio. He had a 1.18 rating over the course of the whole competition. So I really think the pieces of the puzzle kind of came together for Order, and they were able to prove to us, what they were able to do as a roster, even despite the fact that they did end up losing that grand final. They did probably expect to win that grand final when they were up 12-3. Overall, I still got enough positives to take away from Order's gameplay to make me think, you know what, I'm pretty happy with that.
Yeah, they're a really good team with a good mentality. I think they're continuing to fall flat in a certain couple of areas that are holding them back at the moment, and that's definitely got to be the consistency of individual performance. And it's not just the young guys. I think sort of the main two people that I try to keep an eye on how they're performing at the moment is Ustillo and Giro. Because I feel like when Ustillo's having a good half, he's killing most of the enemy team before they're really making it through to everyone else. He's kind of just wiping the floor with you. He's aggressive up on, towards T-Con on CT side of train, or he's shutting everything down on the pit on Inferno on CT side, or getting aggressive into carpet. Or, he'll sort of swap up between being a lurk player or like a more entry player on the T side, usually more of the lurk side, but I think, it's really whether the individuals are playing up to scratch. And then the other big area that they seem to fall flat, and this was, again, one of the main reasons why this comeback was able to come through from Renegades, because if you actually watch that game on the CT side of Inferno, you realize that Renegades didn't really do anything special to come back. There was no big plays. There was nothing insane. It was really just them playing the exact same way that they always play, and Order succumbing to the other big issue, which is important to mention, that is that their T sides sometimes fall completely flat and they can't get anything done a lot of the time. And I don't know what the issue is, whether that's just the overall structure of the game not working, or certain players not really doing their role properly, or whether it's actually like an in-game leadership issue or something like that. I'm not really sure yet. I can't really put my finger on why that happens sometimes. I don't know if you have any better insight, boys.
Not so sure. I mean, I guess if you were to assume maybe that the issue could be with Gyra, like, I don't want to kind of go and throw any sort of, not accusations per se around, but like, he is still, as far as IGLs are concerned, still a fairly fresh kind of face to the top level of Australian Counter-Strike. So maybe that could be something there. I'm not really sure. Again, I don't know the inner workings of Order, and I don't know what he's like as an IGL, as an individual. So he could be like the key piece for Order, and it's everyone else kind of cooking things. But, if I had to make an assumption, it's probably something like that. Either way, like I said, I'm not too concerned by this for Order. Bleh, if you've already given your thoughts already on Order, but did you have anything else to sort of add here?
Not really. I think they're clear-cut the second best team here. If you look at the way, for example, the way Chiefs played, I wasn't very convinced with the performance, especially considering Vaughn weren't even playing, right? You had Ground Zero, and the Chiefs seem sloppy. And the reason I'm bringing up Chiefs is because you got to compare Order to the rest of them, right, to see where they stand. And obviously, Renegades and Order pretty close now. This is looking at these recent results, but still a bit to go. And I don't think I can add more to what Pili just mentioned there. We don't really have many insights as to what's really lacking. Was it a place not playing the roles, or was it a pressure getting to him? If it's a pressure, there's the only one way to deal with that is to play more, right? To play more tournaments and just to solidify your mentality as a unit. You might have two core older players who have the experience, but it needs to spread across the rest of the team. Apart from that, yeah, I do still stand by the fact that they are the second best team here. I wasn't impressed with Chiefs. We didn't see Avant, unfortunately. Ground Zero didn't do anything. So
whatever.
Yeah, for now they're going to be happy being the second best team, but I still feel they just need that X factor, right? Something little missing. But once they have that, I feel they could really be a real challenger to Renegades instead of losing in this fashion. And that could happen very quickly, in fact. I'm excited to see what they do in the very near future. And I don't want to see any roster changes quite yet. They look good with what they have. I wouldn't change anyone out at this moment.
No, definitely not.
I think at the end of the day, this isn't the worst tournament to be losing and learning some lessons in, really, when you look at the distribution of the points. It's only 100 points difference between them and Renegades. Assuming the Order continue this form and continue being a top team in the region, in theory, all they really need is to place higher than Renegades in one other of these RMR tournaments. Who knows how many there's going to be or what all that's going to look like, but in theory, if there is more and they're able to actually complete the win next time, then they're still in a decent position to try to fight for that top spot.
Actually, the RMR system, as far as I understand, is going to add more points towards the back end of things. So when we get into the tournaments that are closer to when the major is actually supposed to happen, they're going to be able to earn more points. So maybe this first one doesn't even really matter in the grand scheme of things, especially for someone like Avant. But that's kind of down a bit of a rabbit hole. We'll continue with the good here. And this might be a bit of a surprising one for viewers who have kind of already seen or already sort of focused on what exactly happened in Road to Rio. But I'm going to actually put Vici in the good category, at least with the caveat that during groups, they did look really good. Pili, we were watching these games and thinking, man, there's no way that Vici lose. Vici's going to walk through this competition. They were basically obliterating everyone. Jam Young was looking sick. Zoking was looking sick. Kaze was doing well, even with a rifle. Advent wasn't really doing much as far as fragging was concerned, but whatever. And Orman was basically having career best form, it felt like. So in the group stage, Vici actually looked really good.
Yeah, they look fantastic. They didn't really get tested in the group stage. I just don't know what the fuck is wrong with them when they play Tyloo, and I saw it coming. I legit saw it coming. I got baited last time, and I've learnt my lesson. Extremes Land Finals, I was like, easy win for Vici in the grand final. There is no way they can lose that one. And that was even against their better Tyloo roster as well. And then this time around, I was like, Vici should win this one. There's no way that this Tyloo roster should be able to beat them. This is not even a good roster as far as their performance in the tournament so far. And I don't know how the hell it happens. And in that fashion as well, honestly, I feel like that's almost more egregious than Order, losing after Vici took that first map and we're going on to Vertigo, a map that Tyloo literally had barely played, only beaten Linvision on. At least Order's playing a team that's a top team, a pretty good international team, a team that's known for the comebacks, a team that's comfortable on the maps. You're literally playing a team that was put together a couple weeks ago on maps that they probably haven't really even touched that much, and you're just very, very scared to be able to peak them, and you're playing them on a map that they shouldn't be able to win, even against the likes of teams that shouldn't be as good as Vici. So I don't know what the hell is going on with that matchup. There's some kind of mental block there, because you could see how scared they were when they were up a map. They didn't even want to push on T side. I've never seen Kaze hold angles so much on the T side and just play like such a pussy.
Well, we're already sort of diving into the bad part of Vici. I thought we were going to do this a bit later on in the discussion when we got into the bad category, but Pilsy's gone all in. He's basically a Vici hater.
I'm just tilted, man. I'm just really tilted that they weren't able to win here. I think that they were by far the best team in the competition, and I don't know what the hell is wrong with them when they play Tyloo.
Well, let's break that down a little bit further into the track. I want to keep it positive for Vici at the moment, before we really ream them. But Bleh, did you see anything during the group stage? I don't know if you watched too much of the group stage, but Vici did look really good.
Yeah, I saw a few games here and there. So it's kind of interesting how Vici is disappointed Tyloo in two ways. By firstly has disappointed Mitch in two ways. Firstly, by losing to Tyloo like that, and then of course also fucking his favorite Thai teams up the asshole. They got completely fucking reamed. Thai CS Omega fucking lol. Jesus Christ, they were so bad. So I wonder how Mitch felt there. Like, were you happy that Vici was kind of beating them, or were you like deep down inside hurting that your Thai boys were just getting completely dismantled? But yeah, they look very good in the group stage. I also have an inkling that Vici are a team who really, really like doing their homework on their opponents. They usually do it for all their opponents. And this new Tyloo lineup, I don't think anyone's seen them play, right? He sort of played for I think maybe a couple online games here and there. That's about it. Like,
I'm pretty sure that like Road to Rio was actually like technically their first games as a core, except for maybe like some of those shitty online Chinese events.
And I think that's where Vici kind of fell apart. They didn't really have a read into what Tyloo might be doing. But at the same time, I don't think that's an excuse. Like, Adnan's been around the block for a while. He should be able to. You don't need to necessarily anti-strat a team to win a game, right? That can't be your win condition. Absolutely not. But I agree with Mitch. I think they kind of stopped playing to win and started, like, it's a similar case with Order, right? Very similar with Order. Like, they stop playing to win, start playing not to lose. And you give that to Tyloo, then these are guys, like, people like somebody don't give a fuck. Like, major grand finals, your opponent's at 15 rounds, you're like, 3 rounds. He's still gonna push. He's still gonna, like, give you absolutely zero respect. So when you're going to be facing off players like that inside of Tyloo, you can't give them that space to work with. And I think that's where it all kind of fell apart. And once you lose Vertigo in that fashion, I guess that was pretty much the end of it for Vici. Unfortunate that they also had to face Tyloo in the semifinals. I really thought it would be a Vici Tyloo grand finals, but if it was grand finals, I still felt it would have been pretty much the same.
Fair enough. Well, Vici, they were the only team that actually beat Tiger as well in this entire competition. So, they did beat the eventual winners in a way. There's like something to maybe take from that. That said, I think Vici, if they can perform to the level that we saw in the group stages, in the matches that quote unquote didn't matter, they are still going to be the best team in Asia. And I still think they looked like the best team actually at this tournament in those matches. That's the real caveat, isn't it? It's in those matches that didn't really unfortunately matter. But it's a good way to sort of segue into the discussion about Tiger, who did end up winning the tournament. So in general, for Tiger, you got big thumbs up from, I'd say, all three of us. This was a team, Bleh, that you were talking about a lot in particular. When you were saying you thought that they were a good team and that they could be a good team, and we just haven't yet seen the results. But now, finally, it seems like we've got those results on the board. They've got a win in Road to Rio. And admittedly, like, it's an online tournament and it's not the direct qualifier, so it's not that big. But considering the other teams that were in this competition, they had to go through a lot of good opponents, and they sort of dealt with everyone apart from Vici fairly handedly. So I got to say, I think it's a great result for Tiger and probably the best result for this roster so far.
Oh, it is by far. And this is what I've been waiting for, right? I've seen them play, and I'm just going to read out the results they've had. They had the Asia Minor, East Asia close qualifiers. They came second there, right? Which is shocking. East Asia is probably I still think it is the easiest qualifier for the minors if you think about it. South Korea is non-existent. Taiwan doesn't have a team there. Hong Kong doesn't have, apart from Middle East. But Middle East have those ping issues. Got to bear in mind. Here's kind of equalized out. So they came in second there. They had this play from home cup where they came fourth. They had the DreamHack Masters Spring Asian Open qualifier. They came third and fourth. They haven't really clicked. And I do believe they've been playing a few of these online CS, online Chinese cups, which aren't on HLTV. So I can't see the results. But I don't think they've won anything so far. I was just waiting for that moment where it clicks. And I was worried that it might just take too long and the team just might crumble, like we've seen so many so-called super teams in Asia crumble, right? Like teams like Flash come to mind. And yeah, it finally happened. I'm very happy with the way they've performed. Yes, you said they had the loss to Vici. Apart from that, they were dominant, like convincing wins against Beyond, Lucid Dream. D13 was a big surprise. It came down to an overtime game to close it out. Against Tyloo, though, here's the thing. Here's a caveat. Tyloo still have two stand-ins. All right, they still have two stand-ins. They have Danking and Slowly. They've been around for just 2 weeks. This is pretty much their first or maybe second tournament they've played, and that only online. And it had to come down to like this insane overtime game for Tiger to pull off the win. Impressive, congratulations. But when you've been around for so long as a team, quite a few months right now, I would have expected a cleaner win over Tyloo. Now, I don't know whether to give credit to Tyloo for making it work with just these two new players just being added, or is it the other teams like Vici, like Tiger, just not being at the level of a Tyloo? What if we had seen the full Tyloo lineup playing in this event? What if it wasn't Danking? Sorry, Danking and slowly playing. What would have happened then? I always wonder about that. And considering it's online, I feel Tyloo would potentially just destroy these guys, every one of them. So it's still hard to gauge. You know, you beat Tyloo, fair enough, but this is Tyloo at 70%.
All right.
It's not really full Tyloo, right?
What do you reckon about Tiger then, Pilsky? You know, obviously you watched really only their... You obviously didn't cast any of their group stage games because we didn't get to see them on the mainstream, but we saw them in the semi-final. Or at least you were there watching it, I know. And you did cast a little bit of that, funnily enough, as how things did turn out. But you cast the grand final, of course. And so, you know, it seemed like Tiger to me were they're kind of getting there, right? They're getting there.
They're a decent team. I 100% subscribe to Blair's line of thought. I don't think that the way some of the other teams were playing in this tournament makes it a super impressive win, and especially because they struggled against Tyloo, who, look, I'm going to be honest, like, except for those games against Vici, but even those games against Vici, like the reverse sweep or whatever, where Vici sort of switched off, Tyloo didn't look good at this tournament at all. And I feel like it was just sort of the most consistent team out of the bad bunch that was able to get it done. I think it was a bit of a miss veto for Tyloo to go towards overpass in that final game. Like, they didn't even look like they really knew what they were doing. And I think Tiger played a pretty okay game of overpass. The person that really sort of impressed me out of all of Tiger was that 9 guy on the AWP. He seems to really have his head sort of switched on. And also, as usual, like, Dobu didn't play that good, but the way that sort of Dobu plays under pressure as well really impresses me, like where he just doesn't back down from going aggressive. Like, you see a lot of players when they're under pressure, they sort of, you know, will just play not to lose. And we saw that be a lot of a problem for many sort of teams in this event. But even in those like last rounds of overpass, Dobu's just like solo and connector trying to like 1v2 the other team and trying to fight, which, you know, might not be the most big brain thing to do, but, you know, it's the big plays that matter in some of those big games, and trusting your game rather than sort of, you know, breaking mentally and going back to something that you're less familiar with to try to win the game with.
Yeah, Dobu and Urcast end up being number 3 and number 4 as far as the ratings are concerned. And I know you don't really want to read too much into like ratings or stats or anything like that too hard, but I think that still kind of goes to show just how good they were individually over the course of a whole tournament. When you've got players like the guys on Tyloo, you know, that they've beaten out, they were higher than Kaze, these sorts of things. So, you know, pretty impressive results for Tiger there. And the one really interesting thing that we sort of learned this weekend was, and I don't know if you actually saw this yet, Blair, but NCL's actually IGLing for Tiger. It's not Urcast. We asked him in the interview, I said, you know, are you IGLing, or like what's the IGL structure in this roster? And turns out it's NCL. So I think that's been pretty good in like freeing up Urcast as an individual, because if you look at his like stats and his playmaking ability and his firepower after he's moved over to Asia, it definitely went up. So seems like that's kind of working for Tiger right now.
Hey, if that's working, it's working, right? I'm still 100% certain that Urcast has something to say when it comes to not necessarily in-game leading, but maybe giving inputs as to how...
He did say he's like quite a vocal player still.
They said it's like a three-way setup in some regards. Hey. Like it's Urcast and Dobu putting input in, which we would probably...
If that works, it works. And kind of explain the stats as well. And see, I'm just taking a look at the player stats for Tiger for this event. And you can see Dobu and Urcast up top 9, like you said, very close by. And then, of course, Cabal just doing his work. And NCL kind of bottoming out. He had a negative rating, in fact, which is something you don't usually see from NCL, at least in some of these online games I've seen of theirs. And we talk about Dobu and Machine Gun Zulkenberg, but NCL has quietly been one of the strongest fraggers from the Mongolian region, in fact, for quite a number of years. So... the fact that he can call and they're winning games and he's still holding his own, it's not like he's completely shitting the bed, right? He's not being an advent, for that matter, fragging in the fragging department. If that works, it works. I'm not going to complain about it. And that's surprising for me, to be honest.
Yeah. So all well and good for Tiger at the moment, but it is kind of just that one small step, right? They need to kind of prove a little bit more. Like, this is where we're saying, okay, you know, we're pretty happy with the performance, but you can't rest on your laurels. It's only one event out of a potential 3 or 4 qualifiers, so you haven't got to the major just yet. A little bit more work to be done. And this obviously also ties kind of hand in hand with Mongolian CS in general, which, like, obviously the fact that Tiger wins is a big boost to Mongolian CS in this event, but D13, very impressive as well. So I just actually want to talk a little bit more about Mongolian Counter-Strike in general at this event. Not only the fact that they actually have 3 out of the 5 teams that have qualified through to Road to Rio, which already is a huge portion to come from one country, and one country that hasn't actually really had that much success of late in Counter-Strike, particularly domestically within Asia. But the fact that they're able to also perform and get 2 of those 2 teams into the semi-finals is even better. So, I mean, let's start off with D13, right? They beat Tyloo in the group stages, and okay, there's also that caveat that they lost to Camel Riders, but from the games that we saw, Pilski, this D13 roster is actually a really cool one to kind of keep an eye on and potentially look for in the future.
Oh, they had the game of their lives against Tyloo, no lie. Like, in terms of the strategy, in terms of the individual players fragging up and having some big plays, like, that was probably one of the best games that I've ever seen from, like, an underdog in quite a long time, at least in the Asian region. So, I mean, I even went into their game against Tiger being like, well, if these guys play like that against Tiger, then they're going to actually smack them a little bit, I think. But unfortunately, they sort of just did that classic thing where you're going into a matchup against some players that you probably idolize a little bit, or that you have a lot of respect for, might be more experienced in terms of the like overall player hierarchy in the scene, and they definitely didn't even play close to as good. And there was definitely that familiarity there. Like, you could tell Tiger knew exactly what kind of stuff they like to do. And I remember that game on Nuke, like Urkas literally seemed to be one step ahead of them every time they tried to do anything. Like, every strat that they did, he was there, like rotating into them and being on top of them. So I think really good performance from D13. The main players, I think Rate is decent, but he's ridiculously inconsistent. He's like that classic like 16, 17-year-old dude who can like ace with a deagle and then like not frag for 10 gun rounds in a row, like just nothing in between. Score is probably like the standout for me. He seems to be like legit a player I would probably plug into a better roster right now. Like, he's fucking insane.
It's 18.
And some of the other guys, yeah, he's really young. Some of the other guys were pretty decent at moments too. Like, Annihilation had some good rounds. Not sure who does the in-game leading for them, but whoever's doing the in-game leading for them is doing a really good job. All you have to do is go watch that game against Tyloo and the stuff they were doing on Mirage and Train T side. I mean, they 12-3'd Tyloo on the T side of Train with just some insane strats. It was a fucking great game to watch.
Yeah, I actually think that Train map between D13 and Tyloo was probably, for me, the best map of the tournament, just from a viewership perspective. I think if there's one that you want to go back and take a look at, it's probably that one if you haven't seen it. I mean, obviously there was some good moments in the grand finals where we went to overtimes and such, but that one was a really, really good one. Bleh, I mean, this obviously must give you a bit of faith, right, in Mongolian CS. And like, you know, we've been talking a lot about Thai CS, and I also said this on the broadcast of Pilski a couple of times when we were sort of filling on the desk. But I was like, you know, we talked so much about Thai CS coming into this competition, and we'll get to Thai CS, so don't touch on it too much just yet. But surely, like, now we have to start talking about Mongolian CS as a region, considering that, like, Marzalai, I mean, they didn't do fantastically, right? But they did okay. They kind of punched around their weight.
They were kind of good. I thought some of them played pretty good, actually, like, as individuals. They all had their moments, for sure. They almost beat Tyloo, remember? Like, exactly. Tyloo almost didn't make it out of that group, boys.
Yeah.
And they almost won the whole thing there.
I think it is a bit disappointing, obviously, for Marzalai not to make it out of that group when we probably expected that they should go out of that group. But just in general, like, Mongolian CS seems to be having a really good time at the moment, and the amount of competitions that I've been seeing kind of happen in Mongolia seems to be bringing a lot of new blood into the scene. And like, obviously Marzalai is kind of falling off a little bit, but Tiger and D13, and if any more of these sort of teams kind of come through, like, we could have another 2015, 2016 kind of Mongolian era.
That's good memories, huh? I think there've been quite a few Thai teams around for a while. The thing is, we don't really hear of them because here's the thing: when do people keep an eye on any Asian tournaments? It's Asian minor. It's Asian minor qualifiers, right? And most of the times, it'll be most of the slots will be taken by the Korean guys or most of the Taiwanese guys, the Hong Kong teams, whatever, and you know, Eastern Asia basically. And then you'll have maybe one Mongolian team make their way through, and obviously, it's, I think, a lot of things lining up together. We had Dobu and NCL play for the 5-power line. It was kind of like a mixed East Asian Chinese lineup, right? And Zilkenberg and Machine Gun were nowhere to be found at one point. So if you go back a year and a half, there was literally, I think, just one Mongolian lineup there. Although there were good players around, they never really came together as a Mongolian team. And even though you had D13 around and lots of other smaller teams in the region, I always knew that a lot of talented players, dude. Like some of these, you see a lot of these pug stars, and quite a few of these kids were pug stars. Because some of the players on D13 before they started making an actual team. And I think Zilk and Machine are coming back together with Mara and Sogu forming this team. And then, of course, Urkas coming in. I think that was kind of like the catalyst. When Urkas came in, everyone in Mongolia is like, listen, if there was a time for us to come back and Counter-Strike, with Urki coming back, we need to, like, build around him. They got that unit. And then I think with Zilk and Machine coming in, they got the old boys back. News, Sogu and Mara are also the old school players. So the old school players came back. They disappeared for a while. And that left all the solo players, the remnant, the young remnants of the Mongolian scene to kind of gravitate towards the D13 lineup. And I'm sure there's like a couple of other teams. They have a lot of local tournaments happening in Mongolia, mostly online or LAN cafes and whatnot. So yeah, they've always had a talent, but they never seem to find the right catalyst to kind of like build the teams and make it click. And honestly, I think this event could be it. Not just with Tiger winning the entire thing, but D13 showing signs of the fact that they can really, really do a lot of damage. Also with Silken Machine showing that, hey, you know what, they're not quite done yet. They still have some flashes of brilliance left in them. Yeah, the Mongolian scene is something we really can't discount. Unfortunately, apart from the top two teams who can potentially be... look, I don't know who the orgs are, but I remember when I think Mazalai they're based in China, right? So they can actually play inside of China. But if you're based in Mongolia, what happens is you're just stuck playing in that region because they ping atrociously even to Hong Kong. Like, it depends on the day and the routing and what internet connectivity you have, but they've just been this isolated region where they just play amongst themselves and, just somehow try to make that work. So these are guys used to play at 100 ping, 120 ping. They are like hard fucking core, and you got to give them credit for it. I do agree. Yeah, Mongolia better than Thailand right now. Suck that, Pili.
Any response or...
Well, we'll get into it when we talk about Thai CS.
Well,
yeah, I don't have any response. I think all three Mongolian teams played pretty good at this event. I'm sort of like reserving judgment until we see a few more tournaments and we see the form of some of the other regions to see just how good they are, because it's easy to sort of peak when everybody else is trending down.
Yeah, so this is like where it would have been really cool to see the DreamHack Masters Spring event be 8 teams instead of 4. Like, as much as there are some compelling storylines to come from a 4-team event with the top 2 Chinese teams and the top 2 Thai teams, we could have had the Road to Rio like 2.0 2 weeks later, and it would have just been another fucking awesome tournament to watch. Anyway, now is the time, Pilski. We've been preparing you for a little while, and it's time to talk about Thai CS. Bleh's already fired a couple of shots at you. And this is where we get into the quote-unquote bad segment, right? We've gone through the good. We've talked about the good. Now it's time for you guys to let loose and start basically shitting on everyone. Might be a bit more difficult for you, Pilski, because you haven't been drinking, so you're not, as loose. But tell me about Thai CS. What's gone on in this Road to Rio competition? Because it was an underperformance. It was a disappointing result. Neither of the teams made it into the playoffs. So I'm not sure how, we could have really expected that. Apart from the fact that they were in the group of death.
Yeah, it is a group of death. You have to say that. I just don't think they came into it with good form at all. That was kind of the problem. Let's be real. Let's look at the group, right? You had Vici, Lucid, Beyond, and Tiger. And Lucid were playing pretty decently, honestly. I think if they didn't play fantastic against Tiger, they played absolutely garbage against Vici. But I still think they're a pretty decent team, despite that mix and the communication issues. They definitely have some players. All 5 of them have some pretty good talent, including the Koreans. They really surprised me. I think they have decent sort of structure in terms of in-game leadership. And I think PTC, a player that's been like notoriously inconsistent for ages, is actually starting to hit some good form. Like legit, he was popping off from time to time for Lucid Dream and pretty consistently as well. I think he had quite a good tournament for himself. So there's that. I think Lucid Dream should be pretty alright in that DreamHack Masters event. I think they could actually play quite well if they iron out some of the issues. They lost to... They absolutely smashed Beyond, and Beyond's the team that I am going to probably shit on a little bit, but I'll just talk about the fact that I thought Lucid wasn't too bad first. They lost to Tiger and they lost to Vici. Vici probably should have won the event, and Tiger did win the event, and they still took like 11 rounds on 2 maps against Tiger. So it's like, it's not the worst performance in the world. Yeah, they could have played better, but we all know that Tiger didn't end up going on to win it. So it's like, there's no shame in losing to the team that actually went on to win the event, you know, from in that regard. As for Beyond, I don't even know what the fuck happened there. Like, they added QQ into their roster. I thought that was going to be a great move in terms of the firepower, and he actually did continue to play pretty good. I think it was only him and STK that really played that good throughout the entire event, and the rest of the team was just missing. I've never seen Olivia play this bad in my life. I've never seen them look so disjointed as a team. And yeah, I just don't know what the hell happened with them, and I'm hoping that they can sort of put the pieces together before this DreamHack Masters event, because I think that the roster on paper shows quite a lot of promise, and I think they could be quite a good team. But if they don't fix things up within a couple of weeks, then they're going to be completely non-competitive against the Chinese boys. And we just saw what Lucid Dream did to them, like 16-5, 16-9, legit didn't even put up a fight. Got like 16-5s on their own map pick, got absolutely fisted by Lucid. So then I don't think they're going to be doing anything in that tournament unless they can turn a new leaf.
What's your take here, Bleh? I know you're ready to let loose. And actually, what's funny, from your perspective at least, I'm sure, is when you've been talking negatively about Thai CS, you've always been saying, well, you know, they're normally good online, like they shit on everyone online, and then they come to LAN and they can't do anything at LAN. Well, this was, believe it or not, an online tournament. So what the fuck's going on there? I thought they were supposed to be good online.
I think they're proving me further right that they are kind of shit. I'm sorry. It's been a while. And I personally, I was one of the earliest proponents of how Thai CS kind of turned themselves around like a year back. Once you had these lineups forming, Alpha Red and Beyond and all these guys, and even Signature, right, back then. And you're like, they're finally having solid rosters. They're playing together. They're looking very dangerous in SCA. Sure, there might be online gods, but hey, I'll take it, right? Look, firstly, the Lucid Dream Beyond thing, I'm not going to read too much into that, because these Thai domestic games are fucking ridiculous. It is just all over the place. You can't really gauge anything from that. What I want to gauge from the way they've played is are the results against the other teams, right? Like you said, yeah, it is a harder group, correct? But this is who they need to play. These are the teams they need to beat to get to the next level. They're already the best teams in Southeast Asia. They're already beating your Brens and your Paper Rexes and whatever, you know, remnants of all the Singaporean, Indonesian teams remain in the Southeast Asian regions. So for them to level up, they need to beat the Chinese teams. They need to beat the Mongolian teams, the East Asian teams. And forget beating them. It's just like completely crapping the bed. And for an event they should be really, really prepared for. Look, I don't know what the problem is. There could be multiple reasons. Maybe they were not prepared enough. I'm sorry, that's not an excuse. Was it the nerves? I don't think so. That some of these teams have played in Asian minors. They've played on land again, you know, with more on the line. Can't be the nerves. So what remains? Are they just not good enough? It's weird to say, because I've seen some pretty cool stuff come out from both Beyond and Lucid Dream. Some very cool strats, some very good pocket strats, some good fundamentals, good approach to the game. They know when to aggress. They know how to make their opponents, like, you know, struggle to find any space. They have the fundamentals. They understand the game to a pretty decent level. But it just feels like everything just went out the fucking window when they played against these guys. I'll be honest, I didn't get an opportunity to watch many of the games, but it just felt like, especially for Beyond, it's like they didn't even show up to play, if you ask me. It's like after they lost to Tiger, their willingness to live or even play or even try to win just like dissipated. They're like, we're just gonna here and just like play the full regulation and just gonna lose. And that is just disappointing. Lucid Dream, I agree with Mitch that they did at least put up a little bit of a fight. But then again, man, like this is the one team where you're like, even they got shit on by Vici. Again, they got shit on by Tiger, right? And this is a team who actually have the two South Korean players playing. The comms should not be as good. They've taken the hit of having, well, potentially worse comms than Beyond, just so that they can, you know, try and make something work. And they look better than Beyond. So I agree with Mitch here. Beyond, at this point, it's really hard to have any faith in Beyond. And for Lucid Dream, I'm still going to give them a caveat that having two Korean players is always going to be a detriment. They could have easily picked up a couple of other players from the Thai scene, and I feel they could have still been a better team. But at this point, I feel like I don't know what to do. I don't know what to say. Like, what do you change? Do you pick up a coach from outside? Fine. Even if you do, if you can't speak Thai, I don't think his message is really going to go on through. So it just feels like this is it for TyC. This is where they're going to peak. The best teams in Southeast Asia, nothing more. Kind of like Boot Dreamscape, if you think about it.
I mean, I don't think you can really even call them the best teams in Southeast Asia anymore. And I also don't think that they've hit the same level that Boot Dreamscape did. So I don't think that they've even been able to do that, unfortunately. So maybe this is the peak. And if this is the peak, then it's really, really disappointing, in my opinion.
The other team I did want to mention as well, which is Sigma, is not. I mean, they obviously didn't get a chance to play this tournament, but last month they beat Tiger. They did pretty alright in that play from home event. They've taken a series off Beyond last month as well. Like they didn't. Last time I watched them play, they didn't play too bad. I'd be keen to see what they could do as well in an event like of this caliber. Because I think they could potentially be in better form than some of the other two, but it's really hard to judge. I guess, you know, like this was a terrible form tournament for the Thai teams, but you know, we're just gonna have to judge it from that DreamHack event coming up, because that's gonna be the ultimate tell. Because then it's like there really is no excuse this time. You know, you had bad form one tournament. You know, and we're gonna you're gonna get criticized for having bad form in one tournament, but it was the group of death. Like you can make arguments, blah 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 blah. Obviously, they didn't play very well, but if they don't play well in the DreamHack Masters one that's coming up as well, then it's probably going to be no excuses.
Yep, have to agree. And actually, the way that I would kind of characterize TyCS from what I've been seeing lately is that they're kind of like a fair weather region, right? Where when things are going well, you know, they look good and you're thinking, great, whatever's going on is good to see. But when the going gets tough, they're not really able to perform. And when they're in the important games, you know, they're not able to perform. Because I'm trying to think, like, when was the last time we actually saw a team from the Thai region actually qualify for one of these big major international events outside of
Dallas? That was that Lucid Dream squad.
Which when was that?
The Koreans.
2 years back?
No,
2 years
year.
back, right?
Yeah, let me find out.
So
no, you're right. You're right.
That would be.
I was thinking Vegas.
Roughly 12 months ago, right? Or maybe a bit less than that, I guess, depending if it was in the start of the year or the end of the year.
It was
early.
28th of May to the 2nd of June.
So yeah, it's basically a year ago. So it's a year without one of your top team going
last place.
Well, I mean that's fine. That's fair enough. Like Asian teams
surprise.
always come last, really. Exception being maybe like Tyloo or Vici, right?
Tyloo came last place as well.
Yeah. But like, yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's like, when was the last time you actually saw them qualify for anything that kind of actually mattered, right? They've had good results domestically. We've seen them beat a few of these teams in like all these ESCA things that play, and you know, all the like domestic Asian events. But in reality, when push comes to shove, if you're going to be considered the best team in the region, I don't really care if you are performing well in the domestic competitions that don't lead to anything. I care if you're going to be performing well in the ones that do lead to something. So right now, I mean, I'm starting to feel like maybe TyCS was, you know, at its peak, and we've kind of gone past it already. But I guess, like you say, I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt until DreamHack Spring, and then we'll see. Okay, so that's done and dusted. That's TyCS. Now we'll talk about Vici again. And I know you guys were really raring to go with this one, like, because I didn't even have to prompt you to say bad things about Vici, and you were already going all in. So, like, is there anything more that you want to add? Because this is now the Vici in playoffs segment, where basically they played against Tyloo and shit the bed. Now, for me, the worst part of this was, like, the fact that Orman dropped, like, 1.9 on Inferno. You know, he was fucking godlike. No one could kill him, and he was getting a triple kill every round, it felt like. He ended up with like 1.2 for the whole series, which is still really good. And then you look at the scorelines and you're thinking like, okay, well, Advent didn't frag, which is, again, kind of fair enough. Like, he gets away with it because he's Advent. But the fact that Zoking's minus 21 for the whole series after looking so good in this whole event up to that point, I mean, it's gone totally missing. So I'm going to give this one to you first, Pilski, again. Were you like a little bit bewildered, like watching that game? Because I was certainly I was like, is everything I know about Asian Counter-Strike a lie up to this point? Because I've been watching these guys and they've been fucking everyone. And now they're coming to this playoff and they can't beat Tyloo, that didn't look like they could hit the broadside of a barn in the group stages.
Yeah, like that was just tilting to watch. There's literally no other way that you can describe it. It's like they completely like slammed everyone in the group stage, Tiger included. Like, yeah, sure, they lost a map to them, 16-7, but the other maps they absolutely slammed them on. They, they should have won this whole tournament, and I was getting ready. Like, it felt like this was a tournament that I was getting ready. I was going to be like, well, Vici's #1, and finally, like even it would have felt justified because after they lost that spot at Pro League to visa issues, even though they were beating Tyloo domestically a little bit, and it felt like they were finally starting to take like that #1 spot that they've grinded and tried to earn for such a long time. They, like you said, it's like +20 from Orman on Inferno, the 16-11 victory on Tyloo's map pick. Then you go to Vertigo, a map that Tyloo's like barely played, and when they have played it, they've lost it a lot in Pro League and stuff against international teams. And then the decider is Train, but it shouldn't have even gone to Train. And then inexplicably, Vici start out on T-side Inferno, and they just looked very, very timid. Like, the second that they are about to beat Tyloo, they just switch off, and they all, there was none of that confidence of just running into bomb sites on Inferno and fragging out. And you have to say as well that Orman going +20 actually sort of detracted from the fact that Zoking wasn't really having a good game at all on Inferno, and he was insane in the group stage. Him and Kaze were absolutely ridiculous in the group stage, and then towards that playoff game for the game against Tyloo, like they really just were non-existent. Like if you look at the stats, Kaze had like 2 games in the positive, but like it's not. I don't think it's very hard. Like, there's a big difference between Kaze just going a bit above even and like actually playing well. There's a big difference between Kaze having impact and Kaze being very, very reserved.
Yep.
So yeah, it was a ridiculous series for them to be losing. They should have won this whole event. I don't need to repeat myself anymore. Literally should never have happened, and I think it's all down to like some kind of weird mental block that they have against this Tyloo squad.
Yeah.
That's all I can put it down to. I can't explain it further than that.
Okay, so when we did our like predictions for the minors, we both had Vici as our #1 team, if I remember correctly, Pilski. So after seeing this, I want to like just get a quick thought from you as to whether or not you still believe they are the best team in the Asian region.
Yeah, I think they're the best team in the Asian region, and it's just tilting because like I feel like any other team that they come up against that's not Tyloo, they slam them, and then I don't know what the fuck happens like when they step into the server against Tyloo. It's like some weird shit.
Yep. I'm pretty much of the same thought. Like, again, like I said, I think they were the best looking team in this competition, but only when they were playing in the group stages. So I actually, we had a interview with Jack Bleh. I don't know if you saw that. Again, we had some interviews with the teams, which was good. Who's obviously, for those that don't know, he's the manager of Tyloo, and he's got very good English, and so we got some good answers out of him. And I tried to sort of allude to the fact that I felt like there was like this mental block or this matchup that Tyloo seemed to have over Vici, because I said like in that interview when I framed that question to him, I said like, we looked at this game and we thought that Vici was going to beat Tyloo. We thought that they looked better during the group stages, and yet Tyloo came away with the victory. So I kind of wanted to get his opinion on whether or not he thought that there was like this solid matchup that Tyloo for some reason has over Vici. But he sort of dodged the question a little bit by saying, it's kind of like 50-50, and being involved in the scene, he was quite political and like fair enough, right? Whatever. But what's your take on this one, Bleh? Like, is there just this something about Vici and Tyloo that for some reason Vici never seems to be able to beat Tyloo, regardless of how good they look?
It's hard to answer, right? Let's talk a little bit more rather about Vici as a lineup, right? You have Kaze, you have Advent, like the 2 mainstays of this team, like 2 players you can't take out, right? For obvious reasons. Then you have Jam Young coming in, surprise everyone. I think he's proven whatever he's had to prove.
I mean, even in that grand final, right? Jam Young wasn't bad. Like,
yeah, it wasn't bad. Exactly, it wasn't bad. But here's the thing with Zoking and Almond. Almond, like you said, he has these insane games, like, when it matters the most. But I feel like when two of your players are going to blow hot or cold, depending on, forget the day or the game, on the hour, how can you build a system around that? And that is what Vici thrives on, having the system where it works. And now you're talking about Tyloo and Vici. I'm going to say Vici and every team, including Tyloo, but above Tyloo. You know what I mean? Like, if they're going to face off against any top Australian, let's say they face off against Order or Renegades, right? Or any EU team in the top 20, top 30, top 40 for that matter. Can they do what they've been doing to all the other, the shitty Asian teams, for lack of a better word? Would they? I don't think so. So I don't think it's a Tyloo problem. I think it's just that Tyloo are kind of like the bottom of that rung, of the top tier Counter-Strike. Tyloo's right there at the bottom, and they're not able to get past that. And I believe the reason we bring up Tyloo all the time is because they face off against Tyloo more often. But let's say if they were based in Australia, right? I mean, I'm bending space and time here, but if they were based in Australia, I feel they would be the Chiefs of ANZ CS right now. They're good. They're better than almost everyone else, or Chief or Avant. They can't beat, or let's say Order for that matter, right? They can't beat Renegades. It's right there. And I think that's the problem with Vici. They need to find, even if you keep Almond, they need to change Zoking. I'm not a big proponent of player changes, but it's been around for a while. And I think when Advent has 4 consistent pure fraggers, that is the team that's going to not just beat Tyloo, but be an actual threat to international Counter-Strike.
It's going to be the China Super Team, the Dream Team. Speaking of which, by the way, we did in our last episode kind of discuss this exact same topic. So if you're interested, go back to Geographically Challenged episode 5 to get our really in-depth thoughts on what we think should actually happen with Chinese CS. Anyway, continue, Bleh. I don't know what that was. That just came over me.
It's a good plug. It's a good plug. But I feel like it's pretty much more the same, right? When you guys say Tyloo, what did Vici have against Tyloo? Yeah, it's not Tyloo. It's Tyloo and every team above Tyloo.
So I think the weird thing about that, and the reason that I say Tyloo, is that, like, it doesn't seem to matter what the Tyloo roster is. Like, it is the core, obviously, of Attacker, Somebody, and Summer. But it doesn't really seem to matter whether it's Bntet and Execute, or it's Danking or Slowly, or etc., or Freeman, or whatever. It just seems like Vici can never beat Tyloo. And I feel like you could put any 5 fucking Chinese players on the Tyloo org, and Vici still wouldn't be able to beat them.
I don't know, man. Maybe some like voodoo black magic shit going on there. I have no idea. I agree with you. It is getting a little ridiculous right now, right? But they didn't beat them for the Pro League spot.
Well, the thing is that,
but then the visa issues fucked them over. So, Tyloo still won it.
Vici beat Tyloo to qualify for Katowice, and then didn't go for visa issues, and Tyloo replaced them, and then Vici beat them for Pro League.
Yep.
So, I mean, do we know what the visa issue is?
Asia, they beat them for the Asia Minor Pro closed qualifier spot as well. Like, they've been beating them every time almost with that old lineup, and then now they look like they should have beat them again. And when it would have actually got Vici a benefit, they've fucked it up somehow.
Does anyone know what who the visa issue is? Like, I can only imagine that it's actually Kaze, because he's the only different nationality.
Unlikely. I feel like.
Well, exactly. I was thinking it doesn't make sense, right? Because Malaysia's not.
He's Malaysian, and Malaysia has a pretty good passport. Yeah, if you're Malaysian, you wouldn't really have an issue. Indonesians have an issue, because of reasons. But I doubt it's Kaze. He's traveled enough number of times to America, so it could be one of the. Yeah, I don't know who
Maybe
it could
it's
be.
Jamyang, right?
It has to be Jamyang, because everyone else has traveled. Zoking, I know Advent, and Almond, you definitely have long-term visas by now, so it must be Jamyang just coming in. But hopefully, in the near future, that should get fixed. But I still stand by the fact that even if visa doesn't fuck them over, it's going to be the same old results. They're just going to come bottom last or whatever, DreamHack Masters or Pro League or whatever when they attend. I still believe that a change needs to be made. Freeman, come back. Can you imagine
who are we replacing? Getting rid of Zoking and putting in Freeman?
We're getting rid of Zoking.
Okay.
I look, Zoking's in a very unenviable role where he has to be the entry and everything. But apart from that, he lacks a lot of other aspects. I've been seeing Zoking go for some of the worst plays in Counter-Strike ever for the past 3 or 4 years, and he still does it. He still does it at times. He just can't stop. He's kind of like somebody without the magic touch. It's hard to describe what somebody does right, but that's a problem with Zoking. I'd remove him. I'd get in Freeman. I would still keep Almond because he's just been in the team for a while. He knows the structure and everything. That team could do damage. I mean, Advent knows how to work these players. He just needs more firepower. You can't have a guy who can't frag at all, and then have two players who, depending on which side of the bed they got up on, they decide whether to frag or not. And then you can't leave it all on Kaze or Jam Young, because at one point you're going to have an off game. They're human after all, right?
Yeah. I think you can make that work. Like, you just put Kaze on entry. We literally saw it in the group stages of Road to Rio.
Yeah.
He was entering with an AK, no problems at all.
Yeah.
Don't worry about it.
Superstar, baby.
Anyway, okay. I think we've done enough talking about Vici, unless you've got something else you want to throw in here, Pilsky.
Not really. I'm just
Alright.
I'm just disappointed that they missed out on this win.
Me too.
At the same time, though, it's not like the worst win in the world to lose again. These RMR points is like, it's not the end of the world to underperform in a tournament like this, in my opinion. So I don't know. I think Vici going forward will still be totally.
Yep.
All right, I have a question for Mitch. If Vici lose to either Beyond or Lucid Dream in the Masters thing, the DreamHack one, are you going to be disappointed or happy? I want to know how your emotions are going to be like. Because the Thai team wins something, they beat Vici, but Vici losing to the Thai teams, where do your heart lie?
The dream is that Vici wins, but the Thai team plays a really good game. That's what fulfills me ultimately. If Vici lose, I'm triggered. If the Thai team doesn't perform, I'm triggered. So,
all right, close games where Vici
9 times out of 10. Yeah, 9 times out of 10.
No, but it can't just be a close game, Blade. It has to be a good game. Like, there's a difference between a close game and a good game.
Yeah. We see, honestly, we do see that in Asia a lot, where like the game is close, but it's like, oh wow, this team was like up 12-6, and then what the fuck happened? Got ecoed, and then no, we closed it out.
Well,
that's not a good game.
Pilsky, it's funny that you should mention that, because I'm ready to start bringing in our new segment, and this segment is called The Ugly, and here are the first people off the rank for The Ugly. Not that they are as people ugly. In fact, I think some of them are quite attractive young men, even though I don't bend that way. Maybe it's the whiskey talking. Chiefs, and it's hard to say, right? Because like, I like Chiefs, I like them as a roster. I've been one of their biggest fans, and I actually like the guys as well. I talk to them a lot, or at least I talk to Apoc a fair bit, and I think that he's a good guy. But the way that Chiefs have gone about Road to Rio was fairly ugly, and that's why I've put them in like this category, right? They didn't really have a very good game in many of their matches. Now, I didn't get to watch the Ground Zero game, but I don't actually think that's a relevant match. I think the relevant matches are the ones against Renegades and the one against Order, and they were very, very inconsistent. Humongous basically had like the tournament of his life where he could just do no wrong, and it still didn't really make much of a difference for Chiefs as a whole. And then the fact that they're up 13-2 against Order in the semi-final on train and they couldn't finish the map off is just unbelievable to me. And like, I know I was talking positively about Order against Renegades, and basically the exact same thing happened, but I think it's more symptomatic of the problems that Chiefs have been having of late as a team, and it's something that, you know, we kind of expected even to see from them. So it's kind of just like, you know what, it's just another example of the problems for Chiefs. So what's your take on this, Pilsky? Like, am I being a bit too harsh by putting them in the ugly category, or is there something that Chiefs need to kind of like look at potentially changing or doing in the future? Because this just, again, it's just the same old, same old.
Yeah, they're just too inconsistent as individuals. Like, and I feel like I've repeated myself. I really hope, like, I kind of hope that the people don't watch this podcast that watched our desk segments, because I'm gonna say this for like what feels like the 15th time, but the individuals are just far too inconsistent on the Chiefs, and that's gonna hold them back no matter what. They have the chemistry, they played together for a long time, they have good strats. The problem is that they kind of suck in the mid round from time to time, and their players are just too wildly inconsistent to do anything. And you know, that's always going to hold them back. The thing is, right, like, it doesn't matter that Hugh had a good tournament. Like, it's good for him as an individual player, but you could just see it doesn't have any effect on whether Chiefs win or lose. The key players, in my opinion, is always Skull and Jinx, because, you know, if the entry like sort of players, or the players that have big impact when they get the kills, aren't performing, then you're not going to be able to do anything. I think APOC did to some extent as well. His performance does sort of shape how well rounds sort of come to fruition. And I think we saw that. Like, we saw that in the half they had against Order. When you had, Jinx and Skull having a good half, they were absolutely slamming their opponent. But when they slow down, then they're going to lose.
Yeah, you got anything here, Bleh? I know Chiefs is not a team that you probably have seen a lot of, or at least as much as Pilsky and I have. But I know you had a few words regarding Chiefs earlier on. So, does it seem like for you maybe this experiment has lasted long enough? And I know I'm giving you a bit of a loaded question here, but are you thinking about, if you're in this roster, are you thinking like, okay, we need to make a change, or do we stick with this another 6 months? Or, well, I mean, that's the thing, isn't it?
Yeah, I didn't have a chance to watch the games, but I obviously, Chiefs are a team alongside Avon. I do follow results based. Just too much Counter-Strike to watch, man. They're definitely like there's Renegades, there's Order, and there's Chiefs. Like there's a big gap between these teams.
Right, there was a gap that was so big that we couldn't even see that third hand on the camera.
Exactly, it's like way below, right? And I don't know. I think they just have to stick it out, if you ask me. Maybe switch up an in-game leader, perhaps. I still believe that they have good elements in the lineup. If you look at the players they have, yeah, Humongous had an insane tournament, an insane couple of games there, and also an insane name. But apart from that, like, if you look at this play, Skullmaker, APOC especially, Jinx, I don't know, like maybe someone else takes over the calling roles, a new coach, something maybe, because I don't see a particular weak point player-wise. Like you mentioned, it's a lot of inconsistency happening, right? So I'd say stick it out. Stick it out for a little bit more. Like, do what Tiger did. Maybe it might click in a while. And if in a few more months nothing really works out, then fine, do a major reshuffle or whatever. But I still believe, being the third best team, I'd say third to fourth best team in Australia isn't that bad an achievement to have, to be very honest. But it's still, obviously, they're aiming for number one, right? I completely agree with you on that. But you can't just get there immediately. You're talking about a Renegades lineup who've been playing internationally for quite a while right now. They have so much of experience under the belt. You have an Order lineup who are looking very solid at the moment. They also have a couple of players who have played internationally in some of the best Aussie teams who have ever been formed, right? So you can't just get there immediately. Right now, take your time, grind it out. That's the general advice I'd give. And hey, if it can work for teams like Tiger, maybe it's going to work for you down the line. So, yeah.
Yeah, hopefully. I still want to see more from Chiefs. Again, similar sort of a situation to Thai CS, where we want to see how they go in the DreamHack Masters tournament. A tournament which I would actually argue probably has more impact on my sort of perception of the top four of ANZ, because it's actually got Avant in it, right? So, like Road to Rio, I think is a little bit marred by the fact, unfortunately, not unfortunately, but like for Ground Zero, it's fortunate, but the fact that we don't get the top four teams in ANZ, I think, is not as exciting for that particular event. Anyway, the other one in the ugly category is Tyloo, and you might ask, why did I put them in the ugly category? They made the grand finals. They looked pretty good. But did they look really good? Like, I think they kind of looked a bit on and off. They were an ugly team to watch, in my opinion. Pilsky was talking about on the desk the fact that they were not like playing like Tyloo. They just seemed like any other team that seemed to have just slotted a couple of players in, which, to be fair, they did. They have slotted a couple of players in. But the way that I'd kind of categorize them here is that the fangs weren't there for Tyloo, so there was nothing like deadly. You didn't get that Tyloo feeling from them.
True. But here's the thing. We talk about ugly, right? If you guys watch a Predator movie, you have like beautiful examples of mankind, like, you have Arnold Schwarzenegger, you have what's his face? Apollo Creed, you had Jesse Ventura, you had all these amazing, massive, gleaming examples of masculinity, and then you had a Predator who's an ugly motherfucker.
Okay. I don't know where you're going with this.
Wait, Arnold wins in the end, but keeping that aside, he fucked up everyone. That's Tyloo right there. They're ugly, but they make it work. They're a predator. And in the jungles of Asia, they are king, all right? And the reason it works is because they have just that mental strength they have to just grind it back together. Yeah, they've lost Bntet. Yeah, there's no more X to it here. Yeah, you have Danking and Stoli playing in, but you still have somebody, Attacker and Summer. And that's why these three are always in my top Chinese lineups. They have disappointed us and me personally time and time again, but they're still the kings of the jungle. and they just have the firepower. They're consistent firepower. That's the thing that we've been speaking about Chiefs. We've been speaking about Tiger. We're speaking about Vici. We've been speaking about all these teams. What's the one common thread running through all of them? Inconsistency. They are not consistent. If you look at the players in this lineup, you have ups and downs. Apart from anomalies like Kaze and Jam Young, look at everyone else. They have their ups and downs, right? There's never that consistency. But you look at a core of Tyloo, especially in Asia, yeah, they might lose once in a while to a Vici or, in this case, to a Tiger, but they have that core player, the trio, who are going to be always dropping numbers. And that is something which I feel, gives them that little bit of an extra edge. It might be ugly Counter-Strike, and I agree with you, Jordan, that they did seem to lack the fangs, the teeth, and whatnot, but they still have enough of a punch in the way to play Counter-Strike to just at least get to the finals. And even here, the Tiger win against Tyloo, great win for Tiger. I'm happy for them. I'm happy that Urkas, this experiment's actually starting to work out. The fact that Tyloo look kind of mortal right now, but this is a lineup we're playing pretty much a first event with two. Well, we don't even know if they're stand-ins, right? No one really knows what's going on. So you have to have that caveat in. Maybe the other two guys come in. Maybe the Korean and the Hong Kong players step back in. Then what's going to happen?
Yeah.
They have been playing Pro League in EU for like 2 or 3 months. They have that system going. Maybe for them, this is just about getting the RMR points. Maybe this for them, it's just about, just playing with what they have at the moment. I'm still not certain that this is going to be the final Tyloo lineup. I still feel like Freeman and I keep getting confused.
Zeta.
Yeah, Zeta. Yeah. So Freeman and Zeta are extremely gifted players to just let go that easily, especially considering that they have played together for 2 or 3 months in EU boot camping there. That's experience flushed down the toilet if you're going to make that go. I don't think that's going to happen. I don't think they're that dumb. So I agree. This is an ugly performance based on what we expect from Tyloo, but with the caveat that they have these two players standing in, I'm actually okay with this. I felt like, at one point I felt like they probably lose to Vici. It was going to be Vici Tiger Grand Finals, but Tyloo showed that they still have what it takes to take down full rosters with a lot of experience, with a lot of prep time. They're still getting taken down by a team with 2 stand-ins. That, in my opinion, it still shows that Tyloo are a good team, at least in Asia.
Yeah, I mean, I actually think it sort of speaks more to their opposition really than it speaks to Tyloo, to be honest. Yeah. When you're sort of talking about that, what's been your take for Tyloo here, Pilski, in Road to Rio? Were you sort of impressed by what they were able to do with this roster, or disappointed, or give us your all?
I was disappointed. I think they kind of sucked, to be honest. And I'm gonna give some caveats for that as well. But like, they're playing a very different style now. I think they're trying to be a lot more proper of a team with this lineup, and they're trying to play some more, decent Counter-Strike in terms of running the defaults, etc. You often saw them go for 1-3-1s and stuff like that on T side and try to play a lot more sort of like standard, as opposed to going for certain wild cards and whatnot. In terms of aggressive plays and stuff. The interesting thing is that they almost won this tournament with somebody having the worst competition of his life. He actually was below 1 rating for the entire tournament. So, it's crazy that they managed to perform this well under that caveat. I think Slowly is quite good as a pickup. I think Dan King definitely has potential, but he's a little bit too inconsistent at the moment. I think this squad has a lot more potential, and I think honestly, if they played a little better, if somebody played a little better in particular, and they have some more time together, then maybe they could do a little better. But they were quite disappointing for me, and I honestly think that this tournament they probably played like 60% of their level, and they still almost won the whole thing. So
yep.
That's pretty ridiculous.
Yeah, that's exactly why I put them in the ugly category here, because I don't think that Tyloo looked good as a roster. The game that they lost against E13 was pretty shocking, and yet they still managed to make their way all the way through to the grand final. There's just some sort of Tyloo magic kind of thing happening.
Also wanted to mention, by the way, that Attacker played fucking insane this tournament. In this version of Tyloo, this guy's absolutely beastly. Whereas you look at the other games, in those old Tyloo rosters, he really, was having a hard time. But it seems like in this edition of Tyloo, he's like power.
Yeah, definitely. And I guess maybe he saw that I didn't put him in my Chinese Dream Team, so he's decided to power up and prove me wrong.
Or maybe he saw himself in mine, and he's like, I'm going to prove something.
Vindicate Bleh. All right. Well, okay. Here's a good thing then. One thing that sort of vindicates Bleh a little bit, and as we get into the chat shit segment, it's going to be a quick one where we're sort of short on time today. We'll talk very, very quickly about Bntet. He won North America for Road to Rio. You're obviously with Gen G, 2-1 over Furia. So obviously the best player in Indonesia. Probably not the best player in Asia though, because you can't be both. And it's good for us fans of Indonesian Counter-Strike to be seeing Bntet be able to get a win in North America.
I like, this is a guy who stood in for NXL in 2013. There was an MSI event, which was it LDLC? It was one of the French teams. It was Very Games who won that.
MSI beat
Fnatic
it.
came second or something. Sorry?
MSI beat it, was it?
MSI beat it in 2013. He played for NXL and he bottom fragged. He was like a shitter. And he disappeared for a year and a half. Comes back out of nowhere playing some in a tier 2 team in Indonesia. And then he plays for NXL for a bit, then Reka. And then, of course, famously gets picked. And he's just like stomping everyone, then gets picked up by Tyloo. And it just goes to show that there are players like this available, and it's just how you approach the game. Are there better aimers than Bntet in Asia? Yes, there are. I could easily say 5 or 6, maybe close to 10 players who can aim better than Bntet does. But Bntet for me is kind of like a Rops. He's about textbook Counter-Strike, not taking chances, playing the numbers, the percentages. And guess what happens, boys and girls? He gets picked up by Tyloo. Guess what happens after that? He gets picked up by fucking North American org. Guess what happens after that? He wins a fucking Road to Rio NA. That is the path. That is the example you want to take. If you're an Asian Counter-Strike player, oh my god, I don't have any opportunity. Fuck you. Get good. Look at this guy. His name's Hansel Ferdinand. No one even knows where he's from. Is he from Poland, from Monaco, from Indonesia? Who the fuck cares? He's fucking winning shit. He's also the highest rated player, if I'm not mistaken, in the Road to Rio for Gen G.
Yep.
And this is with automatic in the lineup, man. I'm just saying, you want to be good? Look at this guy's example. Look at what he's done.
All right.
Look at how he's managed to grind himself from being nowhere, literally from a fuck all scene, where there's, even in Asia, Indonesia, there's no one there anymore. Reka had their moments, but he goes from there to being a known name and perhaps the greatest Counter-Strike, not perhaps, the best CSGO player from Asia to have ever touched the game. And to that, I leave my last final sip of my Jack Daniels. Cheers to you, Bntet.
Yeah, I think that's probably a pretty good place to end things. I want to give you a very quick option here, Pilsky, to say your piece on Bntet, and then we're going to close the show.
Sure. I'll give a meme answer and a non-meme answer. As a person of Polish descent that's from down under, if you flip the Polish flag upside down, me and Bntet are basically the same nationality. So I'm very, very proud of my boy. The real answer really is that there's a lot of Asian talent. There's a lot of players in Asia that could actually function very well in more competitive regions, and I think that's something that needs to be explored more in the future, and I hope that happens.
Definitely. I'd love to see, again, like I've talked about in the past, an ANZ Asia mixed team. I think that would be fucking sick. Maybe one day we'll get that. Either way, that's going to be the end of episode number 6 for Geographically Challenged. A bit of a shorter one. Again, as we said, we're a little bit pressed for time. But before we go, Bleh, closing statement.
I feel like this R2R, Road to Rio, this time was a little bit of a surprise, but it was also a pleasant surprise. We saw a lot of cool things. Also saw a lot of expectations kind of fall on its face, but I'm looking for the next one. That's going to be more at stake, more on the line, and I feel like teams like Vici and Tyloo are going to be more ready for it. Tiger is going to be really tested, so I'm really excited for that. Also excited for the DreamHack Masters Spring thing with the two Thai teams to be even more disappointed and then drink while Pilsky just cries into his microphone. That's one thing I'm looking forward to. Apart from that, that's about it. Hire us, you motherfuckers.
Yeah, and that's Bleh. You can find him at Official Bleh. If you want to hire him, send him a Twitter DM and ask him about
hire all of us.
Elfishguy and Pilsky as well, because we're pretty good. Pilsky, what's your final thoughts for this week?
Just looking forward to the Masters Spring event. I don't think the Thai teams could really let me down any more than they have, so it's only up from here, boys. Easy.
Yeah, definitely, and hit him up at Pilsky Casts. He's got a new Twitter handle. He's a new man, really, it feels like, after casting with you.
When was the last time you tweeted, Pilsky?
I tweeted all throughout Road to Rio.
He's actually done a lot of tweeting.
And
did,
I have some great pictures of you ready for some meme tweets, mate. As soon as you slip up, I was thinking about posting them in the comments to your tweets, and they're coming your way. Although you have your own material as well, so I'm scared of some retaliation.
I have some stories. I have some stories of yours. That's fine. Just a few.
Yeah, the Pilsky and the Hoe story, but that one is perhaps a story for another day. We'll talk about that, I'm sure, on another episode. Probably one where we're all drunk and not just me. Either way, that's the end of episode 6. I've been Elfishguy. Find me down there at Twitter. Give us a sub. Give us a like. Let us know what you want to hear as well on Geographically Challenged, because we're definitely keen to keep the discussion rolling about Asian Counter-Strike. And we will see you for the DreamHack Masters discussion and all of these RMR discussions, because there is still plenty to look at. That's my takeaway, is that finally we have some good Asian Counter-Strike to keep an eye on and sort of start to build some storylines for. Anyway, peace out.